good evening to one and all. It was indeed a pleasure. This entire day has been just fantastic, and we have been doing great things here. And the speakers have been just amazing, and we've been getting a lot of questions from students and things like that. And it's been a really a wonderful day for all. And I'm sure this panel discussion is going to be something very unique, wherein we have expertise from different fields, and I am sure that everybody is just going to enjoy, and you're all going to rock here now, and I'm sure that things are going to be good and wonderful. So I would like to introduce Mr. Amit, who's going to be the moderator for this program now, and he's going to take over this entire program. So thanks to all the viewers and everybody who's watching us, and we are so thankful that everybody has joined right from the morning. We're having right from 10 o'clock, and it's going on, and we see all the people are glued here and they're watching the program, and I'm sure they're waiting for this particular program now. Thanks, and over to Mr. Amit.
Thank you so much, whoever's joined in. So re-envisioning the future of business and education, rebuilding a stronger foundation. I just wish Kripanade was a part of my childhood, dude. Like I don't know, Sachin Tendulkar would have become another Sharmaji ka beta or an engineer, software engineer at Infosys or something. I don't know if his parents would have forced him to do what they wanted him to do. So let's start off with the session. I'm going to be doing a quick introduction of all the speakers, and I want your opinion about our topic for the day. Our first who I'm going to be talking to is Subir Malik. Subir Malik is the founder of Parikrama. They've been there for 3 decades now, dude. And they're fondly known as legends and granddaddies of rock and roll. Also, Subir, huge fan of your band and Sonam Sherpa. I genuinely miss him, dude. You could take over. Give us your 2 minutes.
Yeah, hi, this is Subir. I think it's not really about our industry. Overall, whatever has happened was probably not expected by anybody. And I guess we are all down to almost somebody's worked for 6 years, somebody's worked for 20 years, somebody has worked for 5 years. But I guess we are all now almost down to a flat zero, and we need to really reinvent things to be, what I may say, relevant again in our own fields, in our businesses, in our own services.
All right. I would like to call upon Dr. Neeraj Sharma, who is the Honorary Consul General of Republic of Palau to India.
Thank you so much. Palau is a very small island, and we are proud to say that we are one of those few handful nations which is COVID free till now. So we are absolutely proud of that. And in the panel discussion today, I was a key speaker in the morning. My key focus areas were of business and education, how to move forward in that. But then as I spoke, I felt that the most important factor in both these areas is leadership. So as the session progresses, my focus would be more on leadership. Thank you.
All right. Talking about our next speaker, he's an innovator, a strategist, and he has an incredible LinkedIn bio, by the way. I just found this on his LinkedIn bio. His name is Avnish Sabharwal. He's the MD of Accenture Ventures and Open Innovation. Avnish, go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Amit. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Avnish Sabharwal. So just to set the context, I think in terms of the impact of pandemic, I feel that the COVID-19 is first a health and humanitarian crisis, and businesses are now rapidly adjusting. So while the crisis unfolds, industry leaders are preparing for what is coming next, but not the next normal. Normal isn't available to us anymore, and business as usual, even less. So what we see, the impact of COVID is hitting businesses in 3 major ways. One is the disrupted supply chains. Second is a squeeze on consumer spending, especially on non-essentials. And the third and big one, which is also relevant to our industry, is limitations on how and where people work. right? That's a big one. So, for example, the disruption has caused an acceleration of remote working and rapid focus on evaluating and de-risking and enabling business continuity in the IT industry. Just to give you some number, Accenture was able to make almost 200,000 people in India work from office in a matter of work from home, sorry, in a matter of weeks, right? And this was done through enabling digital remote workforce, huge focus on virtual collaboration tools, security, chatbots for employee engagement, employee productivity monitoring, and things like that. So in summary, the new reality which is taking place is made of complexity, uncertainty, also opportunities. And to adapt and thrive, organizations, individuals, and students must accelerate and become resilient and agile. And Accenture helping leaders and organizations address the deep changes needed in this new environment from a people, operations, and technology perspective at speed and scale. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker, I don't know where to start with. She's an athlete from Namma Bengaluru, and she's a recipient of Arjuna Award and Rajotsava Award. Of course, it's Miss Reeth Abraham.
Well, it's a pleasure for me to be on this panel and to meet fantastic people like you all here. Well, Amar, you said, what the hell, how? I think it was just pure hard work, dedication, perseverance, and staying positive. And I think that is what is required during the current situation. For me, health and fitness has been part of my lifestyle, and it still is. And wherever I go, I've been promoting, and telling people that you have to stay fit. Whatever you do, you have to stay fit. Well, making money is important, but at the end of the day, if you are not healthy, then everything is lost. So even when I go to corporates and I give them motivational talks, I tell them that at this point of time, most of them in the corporates, they are in the age group between 25 and 35. They think keeping fit is not important, making money is important. But I think now people realize how important it is to keep fit. So I'm going to emphasize on, talking about health and fitness and how people should manage their lives and not give excuses to say that they don't have time to take care of themselves. Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be on this panel.
Thank you, Reeth. And our next speaker, Mr. Alok Anil. And Alok Anil is a member of World Economic Forum's 3D printing expert network and global shapers community. Incredible. And Alok's team at Next Big Innovation Labs, that's NBIL, successfully built India's first commercial 3D bioprinter. What was it like, Alok? Tell us your opinion.
I hope you guys can hear me well. Just checking in. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So I think, yeah, it's a pleasure to be on this panel with the other panelists. Thanks for inviting me. So broadly, I think since today's discussion is going to revolve around life post the pandemic or post COVID-19 that we're trying to rebuild, and the stronger focus is on rebuilding a stronger foundation. My kind of points in today's discussions would be broadly revolving around how entrepreneurs like myself have had to adapt, have had to adopt to new strategies, and have had to re-strategize our plans just because something as small as a virus came into our lives and then created disruption. So as you all might be very well aware, same sort of situation exists with students today. So it's very important to look at this as a learning experience and have that redundancy plan set in, which we always usually tend to ignore. So that's something that I'll be going through in my kind of discussion today with the other fellow panelists. And broadly, again, yes, covering details about the work we have done with 3D bioprinting, how we're trying to kind of look at building a reskilling and upskilling course for people who are interested in the subject, and also broadly around how there is an important need to reskill and upskill our workforce. That's a specific project I'm working the World Economic Forum. So I'd like to cover that.
Okay, thank you so much, Alok. Our next speaker, where do I start? She needs no introduction, dude. She's an actress. And how many fans of Roja? Raise your hands. How many fans of Mani Ratnam's Roja? Yeah, all of you guys. Awesome. Who hasn't had a crush on her, dude? It's Madhusha. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us. Please go for it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I was there earlier on your platform as well, and I got a lot of support, and I'm so proud to be with you. You know, this platform of education and taking it forward and inviting people to speak. Like in TED, they say, it's all about ideas, connected with ideas. And I have helped myself only by listening to great minds, great people, great thoughts. And even though they are sometimes not even present on the planet, I've read their books and their old talks. And sometimes I'm just listening to beautiful people giving lectures in Stanford and Yale premises where I've never put my foot in there. But because I feel so connected that having this opportunity through digital platform to listen to wonderful minds and wonderful thoughts, it has given me the perspective of brightening my view firstly, and to be able to change my thoughts, to think that there is something more than what I understand of life. And it only comes from mind. So therefore, I'm extremely grateful for organizing such webinars and such platform where you have such amazing people coming and sharing their thoughts and ways of life. And there are young minds. It is minds that affect minds. It is minds that makes the shift happen. If somebody has shifted my way of being, I hope some of us can shift your way of being. And together we can bring about the change that is required. Change is the only way things move. And sometimes the best changes come in very difficult packages, very uncomfortable, because we are also set in our comfort zone. So just getting out of comfort zone is the greatest change. And getting out of comfort zone maybe, you know, look difficult, looks, you know, you are cringing in there. But when you come out of comfort zone, there is a possibility of greatness. There is a possibility of things that you have not seen. And what you see is very limited. And what lies outside is just unlimited. And what makes you aware of that are the people who teach us through words, teach us through experience, teach us through their life. And sometimes not even by teaching, by just sharing and living before us. I had the opportunity, because I'm connected on Zoom, I heard Dr. Abbas, how beautifully he was talking. And he talked about teachers, he talked about great minds, he talked about life, he touched emotional quotient, he touched everything. And when I was listening to him, I felt this is exactly what I want to say. And before I've said it, he has already said it. So this is the beauty, where it brings people from different parts of the world come together, share ideas, and move into the next zone of life positively. Because these times are really hard, times are tough, but the idea, the attitude, and the mindset, the growth mentality, growth mindset, and integration, empathy, gratitude, coming together, and together we shall move forward.
Wow, awesome. I'd like to call upon Ms. Gayatri again, Ms. Gayatri Reddy, who's the founder of K-Create Foundation. Gayatri, go for it. Your introduction, your opinion on the topic today.
So thank you for having me. I keep coming back to Kripanidhi every year. So now I always tell people I'm also part of the Kripanidhi family, because I keep coming back for an event or a function or whatever else they're hosting. So it's such a warm place to be, very friendly atmosphere to be in. So yeah, I do commercial real estate in my day job, which is I work on making large office spaces for large corporates and leasing those spaces and seeing if the spaces are functioning properly, which is the facility aspect of it. And yeah, so that's something I do on a daily basis. But recently, I founded my foundation called Create. Create is a social enterprise. I call it a social enterprise. We focus on the need for better urban planning and development in Bangalore. We're bringing awareness to things like, hey, I want to walk to work, but there are no footpaths, and I want to, I want to drive to work with my windows down, but there's too much pollution. So we try to address issues like this through the foundation. We also do a lot of work on preserving and reviving of lakes. So we've been having this long fight in the Supreme Court where we are fighting the local government to sort of save the lakes in Karnataka and make a difference. And we've been doing good progress on that. So yeah, that's what I do. With regard to this topic, I think again Kripanidhi outdid themselves by coming up with this fantastic topic because it's such a need of the hour, and all of us have gone all of us feel like our lives have suddenly halted and a lot has changed. So I think just having this conversation and putting information out there about different industries and what it means for all of us, and like showing togetherness in these uncertain times till we figure out a new normal. So I feel this is a great conversation to have, and I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Gayatri. Our next speaker, Dr. Syed Abbas, popularly known as MC Abbas. Huge fan, sir. He's a news panelist and chairman and MD of Cincinnati International. Abbas, go for it. Also, Abbas, most importantly, how do you manage Arnab on screen?
All right. Thank you very much for very unorthodox introduction. Nevertheless, how do I manage him? Well, if you've seen most of the debates, is you need to give back as good as you get. So that is how it is. And when you're in a circus, and I'm guilty as I'm charged to be on the show time and again, well, it's more of a circus, but one or two times you're able to seep it through. But nevertheless, like I said, we need to give back as good as we get. So now coming straight back to the topic, I believe Socrates gave long speeches, so his audience killed him. Well, sorry, audience, you can't do that to me. So much of social distancing right now. It's quite huge. So nevertheless, I will keep it short, precise, and tight. There's just one quote which comes to my mind. Eleanor Roosevelt saying, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Well, of course, this is the re-envisioning the future of business and education. Sometimes, let me tell you, business and education become the two sides of the same coin. Here, business, and again, the most striking word of the millennials today is entrepreneurship, entrepreneur. To me, I'd say, of course, business has various gamuts and umbrellas, but I'd like to choose and see the word entrepreneur, of course, and also education. These two are not just two sides of the same coin, but also the two wheels of life which you need to balance accordingly. I'd like to touch upon thinking and thinking big. I'd like to tell the audience to please read this book called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. It envisions your life to think big and be big. There's a beautiful saying, what a man thinks, so he becomes. Man or woman, what you think, you become. Of course, that comes with hard work, that comes with enough of your life skills to be adopted and brought through. The other point that I'd like to make is I'm a huge fan of Mr. Ratan Tata. I was truly humbled and honored to host an event in his presence, and when he applauded was one of my greatest moment. So it is Ratan Tata ji who said that not everybody is born with equal talent, but life gives you an equal opportunity to develop that talent. So my dear friends, I'd say try this. Life isn't, we know what happened to a recent star. Life is unpredictable. Life is something which you can never plan. But of course, you, in your given time or space, live every day like it's your last one. Be happy, go out there, be blessed, work on your entrepreneur skills, work on your business aspects. Of course, education is a beacon of light. Like they say, education is what it's a faith, it's a word which feels a light when the dawn is still dark. So go out there, strive and strike hard, because future is in your hands. And as much as you want to build, you make your future today. The efforts you make today is what you get the fruit tomorrow, and tomorrow lies in the future. So think big, develop your talent, and of course, be a winner in life, and always win at life.
All right, let's quickly start the discussion. My first question is to Mr. Subir. Subir from Parikrama. How has the pandemic impacted the music industry? I mean, I see a lot of musicians do a lot of Instagram lives. You are from your studio on the screen, just like how. Are you okay with the new normal? What's it like? Tell us.
Frankly, it's something we have to adopt to. But personally, I'm a rock and roll guy. For me, it's very, very boring. Yeah. I mean, I'll be as straightforward as that. But the point is that sometimes, to understand what's happening and to get to that level, you have to go through all kind of things and then find your own way. So since I manage a lot of other bands also, we do a lot of web search. In fact, we as a company started much before, because it was better than to do that to be relevant in the industry. Otherwise, we would have kind of been lost away. So that's it. It's impacted us as much as probably it's impacted every business around the world. And live concerts is what was my main field, is still. And that, in fact, at the present moment stands absolutely destroyed, if I may use the word, because within our band and artists up to June, we lost about 70, 80 shows. And that's quite a number of shows compared to, I've managed other bands as well. So it's not only Parikrama. And so that's it, yeah. It has impacted the live circuit very, very badly.
Okay, quickly going back to Dr. Gayatri, I heard your introduction. I also want to know, what is the new normal for the business to survive, stabilize, and create opportunities? How are you catching up to the new normal? What's it like?
Yeah, I mean, for our industry, I guess, so because it's actual physical places where people have to come to work, a lot has changed. There is a lot lesser people who are okay to come to work. Although the corporates are fully open, we have been fully functional. My facility team has been fully on the ground and functional. We don't see as many people braving to come to work. They're mostly working from home. So from that perspective, a lot has changed. We think the industry is going to start rethinking how they're going to plan the layout, where the employees work out of. We think a lot of corporates are going to rethink how they're going to manage work and employees in the future. So from that perspective, a lot has changed. But again, from the other perspective, personally, I saw this opportunity to sort of to grow, to find something I'm passionate. I've been always passionate about doing something that is socially focused. So I took this opportunity to sort of work on my foundation and do a lot. So in the foundation, a lot has been happening over the past 6 to 8 months. We have been doing a lot of campaigns and events and initiatives where we bring awareness to environment and climate change. So from that perspective, we have come to understand that people are going to be more conscious when we go forward from here. As consumers, they will prefer to, because from our surveys and from our learnings, we learned that people would rather buy local than imported. People would rather, we also learned something called the contact-free economy. We learned about the shared economy, the gig economy, but the contact-free economy was something that was interesting to see, where a lot of people sort of don't want, continue to consume, but don't want to come in direct contact with the vendor and the supplier. So, so we have been also through the foundation working on certain initiatives that work around those concepts. So I guess we are looking at it as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to reinvent and re-ideate on how we want to place ourselves in the future. So we are looking at this in a very positive sense.
I have a question to Dr. Neeraj, His Excellency Dr. Neeraj, especially about the foreign policies and the things that are happening. A lot of dreams the students have, like, they want to go abroad and they want to pursue their education abroad. Now, what's happened is because of this lockdown and they're not able to go further, pursue, or they're trying to get settled in India. What do you think when things are going to happen? Or still can the student hope to go and pursue their education abroad?
I think at one point of time till February 2020, this was a booming industry where a lot of colleges have been established overseas, a lot of universities have been established overseas. In fact, I'm sure you would have first-hand data, but if you would pick up the data that was available, the highest number of students going outside their home country after China was from India. That was the kind of business that education was generating. It has changed temporarily, it is paused temporarily, but I think it'll be back to normal maybe in another 24 months time. But then by then you're going to face a huge competition and challenge in terms of online education. You will have online campuses which are going to compete with offline campuses, and this is bound to happen. Now you cannot stop it. In fact, when we talk of context of government of India, after 2014, if you would see, there was a slowdown in terms of open universities, there was a slowdown in terms of correspondence courses. This was essentially to protect the brick and mortar institutions like yours, to who have established huge campuses, to protect their, let's say, business interest. But over a period of time, in the last 8 months to 12 months, you would see that the governments have also started coming to terms on the fact that we cannot do with just merely offline campuses. We need to go online. They are doing it in a very staggered manner, but outside India, most countries are open to offering online programs through autonomous institutions, through online universities, through virtual universities. So even if it opens out, definitely it will open out. And if you are an institution of repute, nobody will stop you from getting students, and students will not stop from coming. People would still want to send their kids to a Harvard Business School or a London Business School. So it's only a matter of time, and it's how, as an institution, you cope up your fixed infrastructure and amalgamate it into an online infrastructure.
Thank you, Dr. Neeraj. I have a question for Mr. Avinash. The thing is, now what's happening is all the people are working from home. So even internship is happening from home. So everything is going on. The placements have also happened and people started working from home. Now the question is it going to be that they're going to cut down the number of people going to work and the people are start going to work at home, or you think the corporate industry is going to open up and the people are going to go back to work? So because we hear a lot of things, this is going to be maybe 50% money will be working and the 50% will be working from home. So is that scenario going to change, or is the corporate thing in a different way?
No, I think, as Gayatri was talking about also the contactless economy, right? We are getting into a world of what I call digital plus contactless, right? And I think the power of working remotely, there was a lot of apprehension before the COVID happened. And most of the organizations used to think that, that will not work for many reasons. One of them being, for example, how do you monitor employee productivity? The second being, can you take care of your client data if you are working remotely? So I think there were multiple apprehensions, but all of them actually have been squashed, especially if you look at from an IT industry perspective. And I was giving you the example of Accenture. We have almost 200,000 employees, and we actually lease a lot of offices from Gayatri. But with that kind of people, we almost had to enable them to work from home, in a matter of few weeks. The reason why we were able to do it was our uptake of some of the digital technologies, collaboration technologies, and also our focus on cloud. But I think a lot of other organizations, the brick and mortar organizations, have struggled a little bit in terms of enabling this model to work, because a lot of the model, a lot of business models are very high touch models. So while, for example, even if you look at an Ola or an Uber, right? So you have technology at your fingertips to actually call the Ola to yourself, but ultimately you have to go and sit into it, right? So the consumption, what I call phygital, right? It's a combination of physical plus digital. And this model is something which needs to be worked out in an environment where people are shunning to, have any sort of contact. So I think going forward, whether it is education, where also I see a hybrid model working out, where you will definitely have much more online education happening, as my earlier colleague was saying, there is no doubt about that. But will that completely stop children to go from school to go or colleges, or the internships will not, return back from remote to the actual world? No, that is going to happen as well. So just like education, the businesses will also have an hybrid model. But a lot of changes which are happening during what I call during COVID time will continue to happen in the post-COVID environment. So if anybody thinks that the world will come back to its normal state, that is definitely not going to happen. And I think we will see a lot of new engagement models coming up in the future. In fact, I always like to say that the kind of innovation which has happened in the last 6 to 8 months has not happened in the last decade. So I guess that trend will continue, and hybrid models, whether in businesses or in education, will definitely be the call of the day.
Yes, Mr. Avinash, thank you. As you said, for the last few months, what we are seeing, there's a great innovation. There's a lot of people entering into innovation and things like that. Asking Mr. Alok, how important it is, upskilling yourself or reskilling yourself in the post-pandemic era, and especially with a lot of innovation that was happening. In fact, our incubation centers and a lot of things are happening, but now everything is kind of a standstill. How can we do this everything online?
Definitely, it was not something we were prepared for as a community to adapt to. So one thing I'd like to kind of bring to the notice of the attendees is a very interesting survey that the World Economic Forum does every 2 years. And the last survey that they did on this future of jobs and future of work was in the year 2018. And that is publicly available for free for people to review. So a very interesting metric in that is they foresaw a growth in this freelancing movement around the world, people traveling wherever, living at one place, working remotely. They foresaw that sort of a culture of work from home, work from wherever you are. But this sort of a complete shift that happened overnight when it comes to all offices being shut, everyone trying to work from home, was never foreseen. So that gives us kind of a challenge also to kind of foresee and predict the future. What best we can do is at least have a redundant plan, and that plan is not just related to your career, but even related to your business. When it comes to your career, again, it's great to today graduate with a strong degree in an electrical engineering or mechanical engineering or so forth. But today we see complete industries being shut down overnight. Just look at the example of the F&B sector. So anyone graduating with a degree in hotel management today has literally no job, or probably no job for the next 6 months, given the fact that the industry is completely hit. So what really happens, and how do young people equip themselves to be prepared for such challenges that we might foresee in the future. The only way is to really upskill yourself, take this opportunity to take this opportunity of actually working from home, to say you have enough time on your hands to look at upskilling yourself, building a new skill, building a second sort of an income if need be, if you're a working professional. So these sort of things are really important to consider, given the fact that the pandemic again was an eye opener, and there might be such challenges also that we will foresee in the future. I'd just like to end by just giving you one reference to the past. I think history teaches a lot of lessons, and one such lesson I think we need to really look at and ensure we learn from it is what really happened with the Spanish flu. So during the Spanish flu in the 1910s, towards the late 1910s, we were in the midst of the second industrial revolution. And broadly, what the second industrial revolution was doing was putting people in factories, getting them to kind of get together, collaborate in teams, build kind of automotive equipment like what Henry Ford did, or like build things in factories. So the world was getting together. People were no longer socially distanced, as a typical term we use today, but they were coming together and they were kind of interacting and collaborating. Along the way, the world has built and the world has evolved in a way to kind of bring people together. Office spaces have been designed for more interactions. We are social animals. We want to work together as teams, but suddenly there is something like the pandemic which brings in the aspect of social distancing. And what is interesting to look at then and now is the challenges that we will see again. So now we are looking at the era of the fourth industrial revolution, and here broadly the domination is not about factories, but the domination is about technologies such as AI, your machine learning, your 3D printing, all of these technologies playing a key role. So what could we foresee in the future is maybe some sort of disruption or some sort of challenge in terms of technology malfunctioning. Just think of all our systems locally in the city of Bangalore or wherever being connected by an AI system, because people believe there's a lot of efficiency when it comes to AI systems being implemented. Then think of the AI going rogue, or think of the unethical aspect of AI wrongly maybe pointing people and fining people. So those sort of challenges are something that we will foresee. So why it's important today to look at this and evaluate it from at least a university perspective is there are going to be new courses, there are going to be new industries that are going to be evolving. Some of them in the areas of, say, cybersecurity, as we look at more people getting online, the issue of cybersecurity with the issue of actually the ethical aspect of AI. So all of this broadly means none of us, including me, who have, I mean, I've spent 10 plus years in the field of deep tech, but something to do with the ethical aspect of AI is something even I am unaware of. So there is a lot of upskilling I need to do myself as a technologist, and there's a lot of reskilling a lot of people have to do to adapt to new industries that are evolving. So that's where I believe is where we need to really focus on, both from an industry perspective, both from an academia perspective, and both from, I mean, also from a perspective of an individual who's looking to stay relevant in the workforce.
All right. My next question, I'd like to ask this question to Ma'am Madhusha. I just wanted to know what the scenario is like with the cinema industry, because a lot of artists in the lockdown, like I've seen, have moved to digital. Like, let's say, social media, Instagram, Facebook, and a lot of stuff like that. They all have become content creators by themselves. But there are people who were completely dependent on the everyday wages, the daily wages. They would work on set and all of that. What is the union doing for them? What are the actors, the established actors union? How are you guys helping them out?
So I was just very quickly say the point that I needed to make, that some of us have come together to help certain people, the daily wagers, to help them out, because it is the stretch, the period of the time has really been truly testing. 1 month, 2 months, people have been able to manage, but beyond that, it has become a burden. And some actors, like I know Salman Khan and his support system have helped people out. I tried to do my bit, and there have been other people who've come together to do something, but it has not been an easy thing to help out in that thing. So hence the life has to go on. Digital platform, digital shooting have started. In fact, my shooting is starting next week. So only if the work starts with all the precautions and caution, keeping the pandemic in mind, work has to start for people at large to resolve their issues. Yes, digital platform has been e-commerce has been a huge strength. It has supported a lot. But having said that, our industry has taken more time to adapt. We've understood the pitfalls. We know what can be done on digital platform, but shooting at large, we all have to only do it when we come together. So with social distancing and all the protocol in place, we have to start shooting. The government has given the permission and shooting has started in bits and pieces.
I hope.
Yes. Yes, you are audible. Absolutely. Yes.
Things I just want to ask now. Actually, the students, they had a dream of becoming something. They want to enter into different fields. Now, what is happening? This pandemic has completely transformed their vision, changed everything, put a lot of fear, and they're looking at security. How secure I can get into? I leave all these jobs, what dreams I had, and they want to get into different sectors, right? But I wanted to, is this going to be this? They need to change their profession or their dream to suit to the condition that we are in, or should they pursue to go further?
That's a brilliant question, my friend. I'd like to quickly answer as I need to head out to Zee News. The quick answer would be two things. Never ever compromise on your dreams. No matter what happens, always hold on to your dreams. Because if you think you're born for something, if you think you're born to do something, you should never let it go. Also, at this time when you don't have your schools, respective colleges, so on and so forth, make the best use out of your time. What you need to do is see, a reader, according to me, is a winner. Read as much as you can. Reading books is what shapes you. It could be any books. It could be an autobiography of somebody you really look up to, or it could be a self-help book or motivational book. Any of that. Try and get more skills out of yourself. You could be a fantastic artist. You never know. This is the thing. You never know unless you try. So you need to try and know what you excel at. You could, if you do the right form of riyaz, you could make a great singer or even a good dancer or a fantastic actor. Like when I see Madhuji, I can just think of Roja and the wonderful, wow, the screen presence you have, ma'am, the grace, the panache. I'd say it's an epitome for every young actress to see the role. Even, many times acting is not just chanting out dialogues, it's in the silence, the pause, and how well you come across to camera. So I think it's a great inspiration for young budding actors to look at the craft of work of Madhuji. Of course, I think you're also...
Dr. Abbas, if I may interrupt you for a second.
Yes, please, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I like the way you speak, doctor, because you talk about business, you talk about outward life, you talk about all of that, but you again and again go back to the quotes of great people. You again and again connect everything to your emotional well-being. You bring it back to that attitude, that how positively we can go on and move and take on life in whichever area. So while you are very well versed with how the world functions, I see and I hear you connecting back to the personal growth, and you're talking about self-help books and autobiography. So you are exactly the kind of person that I admire and look up to. And even about acting, like you very correctly said, it's not about speaking your lines. Like initially, I did tell people that you should train yourself in the skill, in the profession that you want to be participating, whether it is your dialogue, diction, or whatever it is, weight, there's a certain requirement of even the body size. If you take it very impersonally and not attach a negative connotation to it, these are the requirements for the field that you're aiming to be in. While all that is true, my thing that I say to people again and again is to find a place where you can be authentic, be yourself, feel. It's not about learning your lines and speaking them. It is about being that. It's about living that. It is about feeling that. So everywhere, whether you are a mother or you're a business person, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you are a TV telecast, it's about feeling and being truthful to what you truly are. And even if you're changing, it's a changing world. You have a right to change your opinion. If you were something yesterday and you want to be someone different today, you do have a right, as long as you truly believe and you are convinced. And when you live out of your conviction, there is an authenticity that comes. So whether you're an actor or a teacher or whatever, whoever you want to be in life, your truth, your authenticity is what leaves a mark for other people to follow.
Absolutely. I think quickly adding on to that, it's about knowing what your calling is. Once you find your calling and you hone your talent, I think sky is not the limit. You can definitely succeed as much as you want. And ma'am, I'm trying to briefly recall. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. You've also been a part of TV news debates, haven't you?
Yes.
So I'm not just the.
At the moment, I'm keeping myself out of it.
Good, ma'am. Thank you. Wonderful speaking to you all. I need to rush out, and we shall connect respectively on social media. All right. Have a great day, guys. Thank you, Amit.
Thank you.
You've been a great host. And Kripanidhi Group of Institution, thank you. I'm a proud alumni. All right. Have a good day. Bye.
Also, Miss Uzma and everybody, please excuse me. I'm going to take your leave as well. Thank you for having me on this platform with all of you. And may God bless you, and may all success and strength come to you.
And thank you for joining us, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Madhusha. Thank you so much for joining. And thank you so much, Dr. Abbas and Azima. Thank you so much for joining in. All right, let's move on. My next question is to Reed. What exactly is the sports scenario like with the huge events around right now? And I'm sure there is a lot of time to practice, but how do you motivate people who follow you? I'm sure there are a lot of people, a lot of aspiring enthusiasts. How do you want to motivate them?
Well, when you say there's lots of time for practice, I don't think that's the right word to use, because you may go and start your training, go to the stadium or tracks or wherever, whichever sports arena that you belong to. But when you don't know what you're training for, you're mentally not prepared where you're heading to. So the Olympics this year got postponed to next year. So I can imagine what the athletes go through, because they have trained the last couple of years to peak their performances at a particular time. And when a sports extravaganza like the Olympics is postponed, your entire life changes, I think, because there are most of them who would have said that, okay, after the Olympics, I'm going to hang up my shoes and, my life is going to be different. But if that is going to be postponed by a year, your entire life is on hold, or you don't know where you're heading. So it's very, very difficult, to tune yourself, because you don't know what is going to happen in the next couple of months. For instance, most of the athletes, sports persons, they're used to training outdoors, use gyms, pools. Everything was, put to a standstill, and your life changed completely. And for a person like me who's been, going to the gym thrice a week, going to the track thrice a week, initially I thought this pandemic situation would improve in, 2-3 weeks. Never ever imagined that all of us would be, held indoors in a lockdown for such a long period. Initially, it was a kind of a low feeling depressed as to how to change one's lifestyle. And for me, it took me some time because I'm not used to working with online programs, downloading online sessions to work out and things like that. But, being a sports person, it has taught me that life is never at a high all the time. It's the lows which make you stronger, and you have to come back with a positive attitude to brace the world. And, I kept telling myself and all the kids who train under me that, this is for a short period. It's not just you who's going through this. The entire country and the entire world is going through this pandemic. So you have to, go with the flow and take each step at a time, each day at a time, and then you have to stay positive. That's the most important thing. You may be, in any kind of situation, but if you stay positive and say that there is going to be a future which is bright for you, I think you can tackle anything in life. Because being in the sports field, it has taught me that you have to stay strong always. Because you may train the entire year, but when it's come to competition, if you don't perform well, it pulls you down very badly. And this situation was exactly like that. Looking at the athletes who were training for the Olympics, their life changed overnight. And looking at them, I would quote them and tell the young athletes, saying that you have a future, you have lots of years ahead of you, stay positive, and there is a time that you can excel. So that is what this pandemic has taught us. And for the last 3 months that I've been on webinars or talking to students, I have told them that they have to stay positive. And to corporates, have been saying that health is the most important thing. And most of the places where I have gone, people say that I don't find time. And I think that's a ridiculous excuse that you can give. If you can't find time for yourself to keep fit, nobody can. So this would have taught many people that staying fit, eating healthy, and being positive, thinking positive is the most important thing for you to keep your sanity and move forward.
Thanks, Ms. Rees, that we need to keep ourselves positive. That's very important, that we need to keep ourselves very positive during this time that we're going through. I have a question to Mr. Avinash. Everything is online now. How can we prepare for this online interviews? That's one question the students are asking. How do we prepare for this online interview? We are physical, we train them in so many things, but when it comes into online, what do you think is very important as a corporate you look at in online interviews? Some tips for them to learn how to practice interviews. Mr. Avinash, you need to unmute yourself.
Can I be heard now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess, as we were talking about, the world has changed significantly, and the process of interviews has also changed. Online interviewing is just one of them because, for example, if you look at Accenture and many other companies, the first interview which is happening is actually not happening with a human. It is happening with a bot. So not only you have to train yourself to give interviews online, but also how do you handle an AI bot, right? So these are different things which you will need to adapt if you have to be successful and cross the interview. But I think if you look at from an online interview perspective and how different it is from physical interview, the main thing is the body language, right? In a face-to-face interview, when you are sitting with your interviewer, he can look at your body language, he can see your passion, he can see your enthusiasm, your eyes can meet and you can see all that. But in this kind, like for example, we are going through this panel, right? We hardly see each other. There are hazy kind of movements which is happening, but there is no way you can look into the emotion of a person in terms of what he or she is feeling when they are talking or when they are listening. So I guess, that bit of the skill in terms of how do you make an impression on your interviewer without having a face-to-face, again, being contactless, is something which is obviously an evolving skill. And as I said, the most important thing, or the most important skill nowadays is actually learning new skills. And this is one of them in terms of, how do you go and make yourself successful? It's not only about giving interviews for, for a job. For example, if I go and pitch to my client, nowadays, all my sales pitches are on online, right? This is very new to us as well, because we are used to a close physical contact where you are sitting in a big boardroom and you are giving your pitch and coffee is going on and there is all sorts of other dynamics which are happening. But nowadays sales is all happening online, and you have to get used to it in terms of what are the new capabilities and skills which you need to master to close a deal online. Similarly, if you want to close an interview online, you need to be first aware of how it is different from a physical one, which is what I alluded to earlier. And secondly, learn those new skills, which would be critical for you to pass that online, as well as pass the first one where the interviewer is an AI bot, not a human being.
So learning new skill is very, very important.
Yeah, you have to learn and learn and relearn. You have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. I think that is the most important thing. And giving interviews online is just one part of the big set of skills which you will need to get used to in the what I call the never normal era.
Thank you, Mr. Avnish. I have a question to ask the Excellency Dr. Neeraj. You know, a lot of our B school students, we have entrepreneurship program. They want to establish the business. They want to get into different business and things like that. They have a plan of getting into business, especially the international trade and things like that. Is it the right time they can think on the same, or they need to change their way of thinking?
You know, Sam, right now, half of the world is at home, which means that half of the business markets are shut. If it is a startup, if it is a student who is taking his first steps into business, I would first advise, I'm deviating now, but I would first advise them to take some hard lessons with somebody who's already walked that path. In other words, I'm talking of them getting some experience. But coming back to what you exactly want to, ask, and what I'll answer to the point. Right now is the time to make the pitches. There is, if you see, country to country, right now the situations are different. US wants to open, US is pushing its people to run the businesses. On the other side, Britain is all normal, even though the number of positives are going higher. The GCC, Dubai has just opened, but if you see the Pacific side is still shut. If you see that, if you see other countries across the SAARC nations, some are okay, some are, sleeping, hibernating, some are going to start now. So right now, like I said, the whole globe is in a state of confusion. Some wise man told me once that if you have the money and you don't know what to do, keep it in your pocket. Otherwise, it will just, somebody will pluck it and take it away. So the best way is right now to take one step at a time, take one day at a time. We don't know, we may be the way in the last 2 days in India, cases have been to more than 150,000. We may be staring at another lockdown in the next 2 weeks to come. Maybe unrealistic, maybe realistic. But then right now, I think anybody wanting to get into business has to do a very in-depth research, because all the research reports of pre-2020 February have to be dumped, according to me, because the status has changed, the dynamics have changed, especially in business. So I would say, in a nutshell, watch your step.
Okay, that's the thing. Watch your step. That's very important for the people who actually entrepreneurs or looking at new investment or looking at new business. Watch your step by step, that we can progress. Amen.
All right. So my question is to Mr. Alok. Mr. Alok, now that the national education policy has come out, how do you foresee the future of education in our country changing? What do you think of the future of education in this country?
Right. No, I think it was almost time that we looked at revamp in both education policies and some sort of reforms, broadly because today the world is evolving so fast. I mean, when I was in university to me being in the workforce now, over the last 6 or 7 years, there's been so much advancements that a lot of what I learned is become irrelevant or as kind of advanced in terms of what we've seen with technology evolving. So that was much needed. And when it comes to using education as a great leveler, I think that is the primary focus today for the nation, is to have everyone educated and look at creating a great level system that can ensure that they build futures for themselves, because the current slump that we are stuck in, it's going to be a hard journey ahead, getting people out of this economic slump. And the only way to kind of ensure that each of us are well equipped to do it is to for this, for the government to ensure the right education is imparted to the folks. So yes, broadly it's a good sign, and I feel the future of education is more to do with what you want to pick up online. Today, the world is at your fingertip. We've worked very hard over the past 20-30 years as a community, as the entire generation of entrepreneurs, to look at bringing the world together. Now, just a course at any specific university is just a fingertip away. But it's important, again, yes, to mix this online-offline blend to ensure that you learn at your own pace, but also have the ability to have the offline advantage of interacting with the teachers. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting next few years to look forward to see how the education institutions adapt to new changing policies.
Just I have one question to ask about this. Especially, I was talking about this incubation, that students are doing research and things like that, and can they still pursue, because especially in the case of health science and all that, you need a lot of clinical trial and things like that. So the people who were continuing the research are completely seized on those things. They're not proceeding any further. So we see a lot of research that's being stalled now. So what do you want to tell to these students or the researchers who are just stalled and wondering? A lot of work has been put. But now everything is in a standstill. So can they wait and restart, or they just scrap that and forget that thing?
It's a great question, and I think the biggest challenge that our specific industry, which is more oriented towards R&D in the field, faces is the fact that it takes a long time to churn out products that come into market, and the patience is what is very important. Just looking at this COVID-related pandemic, I mean, all eyes have been on vaccine companies that are looking at potentially bringing something to the market that will potentially bring an end to all the suffering that we see around us in terms of the spread of infections. All of this does not happen overnight. It's years and years of research and years of research papers published and peer-reviewed journal related content that keeps building on, and that's the whole journey. So there is no such thing as a quick win, especially in the field of R&D, mostly because you're dealing with people's lives. You want to test again, you want to ensure that there is a redundant system, you want to ensure that there is no long-term effects. So all of this is work in progress that continues over a period of time. And I believe there's going to be fundamental changes to the healthcare systems that we are going to see around the world. Now, this pandemic has really showcased that there are critical flaws in our healthcare system, the way healthcare is delivered to people, the way our hospital systems are not equipped, the cracks in the current healthcare system that are preventing people from getting the right medical aid. All of this is going to be relooked at, and many governments, especially in Europe, are already looking at revamping their healthcare systems and healthcare policies and ensuring that there is more privatization. That way they understand that the government is not the one who's going to give you the quality healthcare in the future. It's, I mean, to a certain extent, a public-private partnership and a certain level privatization. So the something like the pandemic again is an example to show how important research has been and will be continuing to be in the future, because if we don't understand the virus well enough, then we don't know how to fight it. So that way, I mean, it might sound that you're not getting the success that easy, the success not as fast as someone who's developing a mobile app and quickly launching it in market and getting the 100,000 users. But yeah, so the field we are in, it takes time. So you need that patience, you need that perseverance, you need to build that team. And it's about building that knowledge base over a period of time, and then effectively the results are much bigger than just seeing any sort of a consumer product launch, because here it's about directly impacting the lives of people. So anyone who's interested in this field, my personal suggestion is it's a hard way ahead. I mean, it's a long route, but you need to be in it for the long run, and just ensure that you hang in there and are connected with the right research ecosystems around the world, to ensure that you also are parallelly moving ahead when it comes to recent developments in your own field.
Mr. Reed, my question is to you. Now that digital platforms have taken over, how are you integrate integrating sports training into this. Let's just say I heard yoga classes happening online, and how are you planning to train them with this era of digital?
Before Ms. Reed speaks, I just want to thank Mr. Alok. I think he's got another appointment he needs to leave. Thank you, Mr. Alok, for being a part of this discussion. We appreciate your presence here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, Ms. Reed, over to you.
Yes, the past couple of months have been totally, different as far as sports training goes, whether it's a beginner or an intermediate level or an advanced, athlete. And having said that, you can do certain things indoors. Suppose I'm a coach and I've been training athletes, coaching digitally, someone giving him or her workouts and say, okay, each day you do this workout, works for a certain amount of time or a few months or a week. But over a long period, definitely it's not going to help an athlete build the particular muscles that he's required to for his particular sport. So we are all hoping and keeping our fingers crossed that this pandemic would come to an end soon. In Bangalore, we have been lucky because things have been open and things have been normal for the past month or so. Though the cases have increased, we've been allowed to go on the streets, and the stadiums are slowly opening for us to get back to training. But there is a fear still among kids, especially below the age of 12 and 14. The parents are not very comfortable allowing them to come to a public place for training. I understand that. So it is going to take a lot of time, because how much can you do indoors? You can do yoga, you can do a few stretches, if you have few dumbbells and some things like that. If it's a seasoned athlete, you can do some kind of weight. Because even for a person like me, I didn't have any weight training equipment at home because I used to go to the gym thrice a week. So for me to even pick up things, it was not available, in most of the stores when they actually opened shops for us to buy. So I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that this will come to an end soon, and we will be able to be back to doing what we were in March. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. It was just amazing that we had a great panel discussion, and we had great people here. And if I could have Mr. Avinash, a last word to all our students and our faculty, what do you tell them? What do you want to tell them?
Yeah, thank you. So I like to be a little provocative here. And because you asked me what I should tell the students, so I'm saying here that I feel that what is happening today, and I go to all the education institutes, the top ones in India, I find that 19th century curriculum is being taught by 20th century teachers to 21st century students, right? And that is why education needs to get disrupted. One of the things which I find missing, and then there was a question about how do you pass interviews as well. One of the things which I would like to tell students as well as our, the faculty here is to teach life skills to students. As we discussed today on the panel, we are reading about rising unemployment rates, right, as a result of one, COVID, and secondly, automation technologies like AI. So there's a lot going on about that, robots are going to replace humans, and COVID has acted like, some sort of a fuel on the fire of the automation. However, in my view, there is another factor that is contributing to this situation. And I worry that an entire generation of students are finding themselves unemployable without the capabilities and processes that translate into employment. For example, things like critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, problem solving, coping with failure, and learning to learn new skills. These are the capabilities that need to be imparted by the education institutes to students so that they are prepared to face the VUCA world when they step out. I was lucky to learn them in the Indian Military Academy and then implement them both in the Indian Army as well as corporate life. But if you are not able to imbibe these skills very early on in either in the school or in the colleges, then you will find a big struggle to get employability. And I think the other thing which I would like to add here is that these skills, if you look at, are true skills of an entrepreneur. So why are you basically looking for a job? You should actually, rather than become a job seeker, you should become a job giver. The more students coming out of this institute are job givers, the better will be the state for all and everybody. And as you go ahead, and I like to tell the students here that, and I give an analogy of in the army, there are two tools which we use for navigation. One is a map and the other is a compass. Please mark my word that as you come out of the institute and get into the real life, nobody is going to give you the map of the world or the map of your life, which will give you step-by-step direction of where you have to reach. What you will have is a compass, which is your true north. And how to reach there will be a combination of your plan plus serendipity. So do trust serendipity, because a lot of these things will happen as the universe collides and makes you successful if you are really passionate about something. But I would again like to stress here and say that you need to be learning life skills. And that is why if there are science students, now if you look at the new education policy, they are encouraging for the first time, arts, for example, right? And universities like Ashoka University are making their mark in a very short time in India, because they are combining liberal arts with other science courses. So, and that is the provision which is given in the new education policy as well. So I guess these are the things we need to come out of the clutter of the old world, because anything which made you successful till today, what got you here, is not going to get you there, especially in the post-pandemic environment. So that would be my advice to the students, that learn life skills, try to become an entrepreneur rather than just look for a corporate job.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those words, Mr. Avnish. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. We had an incredible session. The lineup of the panelists were really good. And thank you so much, Mr. Subir, Ms. Gayatri, His Excellency Dr. Neeraj, Mr. Avnish, Ms. Reet, Mr. Alok, Mr. Vikas. Mr. Vikas wasn't able to join us today, but hope we'll get him soon. And Ms. Madhu and Ms. Dr. Abbas. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining in, and have a great day. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Good evening, one and all. I take this opportunity to thank each one of you for staying with us since morning until the end of this panel discussion. I thank all the speakers. Like Amit said, we had incredible line of speakers who shared their different perspectives from different areas of industry, giving their views and sharing a lot of anecdotes, inspiring and motivating. And I thank the Kripanidhi group of institutions and the management for giving us this opportunity to have people from different facets of life to come on single platform and share their views and share their thoughts with us. Thank you so much once again for being there and appreciating the whole webinar today. Myself, Uzma Naeem, signing off from Kripanidhi Group of Institutions. Thank you.